Okay, so as I said, welcome to the webinar. Talking a little bit through life-centered design, non-human personas, and how you can start learning about it. So life-centered design is really about expanding human-centered design, so that design starts to regenerate the planet. No matter what level you're working on, whether it's a product, individual, business, community, you'll connect to these planetary goals where we can start to regenerate the planet. It involves two key tools, two key new tools, which are kind of new versions of old tools. There's ecosystem mapping, which is kind of like taking the business canvas and but taking a more holistic approach and seeing what your product or your subject, your business connects to, what wider ecosystem it impacts, and then creating personas for them, whether they're animals, environments, or vulnerable communities as well, so that you can start having those personas at your design phases and your business decision-making phases as well. So you can start to reduce your impacts. It's about acknowledging that we don't just design things, we design and release new ecosystems that span time and countries and cultures, and have these impacts all along those times and spaces. It's about shifting away from this dominant relationship at the moment that humanity has with the planet, where globally we're just taking so much, making things for just humans to use for our benefit, and then we just dump them when we don't really sort of develop reusing or recycling that well, and it creates a lot of waste and pollution. And that whole cycle, like just the extraction, the manufacturing, the processing, creates all this waste and pollution, and even disruption in regards to like conflict materials. But that means the problem is also the opportunity. So these problems are caused by the fact that about 80% of our environmental impact of the things we design is determined at the design phase. So that means we have an opportunity to turn that around, and not just to reduce the impacts, but to give back more. So life-centered design tries to do that by expanding human-centered design thinking from three sort of angles. And these are also kind of the three problems of modern design. So instead of just focusing on business and target user needs, it's about designing for the needs of your business and your target audience, but also the environments and the animals and the invisible humans that are sort of in your ecosystem. It's shifting from just focusing on target customers, but so that everything is optimized for accessibility and inclusivity. And it's also about shifting from focusing on constant growth, this sort of this global capitalistic movement that I'm fully a part of, that's all about constantly growing. It's about designing for that business sustainability, but one that contributes to a thriving planet than just taking from it all the time. And so that's shifting that model to one that's a more regenerative relationship with the planet. We take less, we reuse and recycle and repair things, we reduce the waste and pollution we put out, and we actually try to give back more and regenerate all the things that we're taking from. So in this way, life-centered design aims to align your work, whatever level you work with the global solutions. So I'll just take you on a little visual journey of how it expands it. First of all, human-centered design is still really, really important. There's lots of talk lately, kind of human-centered design is bad, but still really important. It's done amazing things, but we just need to make it inclusive, responsible, and sustainable by default. So, it's not allowing accessibility to be an option, and that goes right down to education as well. Design, it shouldn't be, sustainability shouldn't be a separate part to designing. Accessibility shouldn't be separate, and ethical design, these should be baked into education and actual basic design processes. It's about considering that broader life cycle too of what we make and taking more responsibility of that. What can we change? What can we influence? Who are our partners? What impact are they having? Can we work with them to reduce those impacts? Can we find more sustainable partners? That sort of thing. And through ecosystem mapping, recognizing the life forms that we impact and that wider life cycle ecosystem, what they impact, and having more responsibility on that because we're profiting from this. And it's also about honoring the past and the future. So recognizing that there has been past damage and that we don't perpetuate that through our business or our industry. And it's thinking about what's the future impacts of what we design today. What happens if it scales up to 1 million users? What sort of impact will that have? Are we ready to mitigate those environmental impacts? So it's this really This is kind of basically the broad scope of life-centered design, how it expands human-centered design. And it's all about doing less harm and doing more good. Just to introduce myself, I'm the founder of the Life Centered Design Lab and Future Scouting. These are two innovative design labs here in Sydney, Australia, which is home of the traditional owners, the Gadigal people. I've been in UX design for about 13 years, and in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been developing futuring and life-centered design. And life-centered design brings together futuring with a whole lot of other design practices as well. So I've been exploring circular design, biomimicry, systems thinking, because as I said, they all come together in life-centered design. And this has been sort of a mission I've had for the last 4 years, is to develop a more values-driven approach to design. First of all, through my 2 design hubs, Future Scouting, which is about speculating future scenarios and being future ready, and then Life-Centered Design, which is this more very holistic approach. It's about just making these fringe design practices, giving them more exposure to designers and businesses, and enabling them to play around with it more. So through research and experiments, I applied life-centered design, and as I've kind of developed this process to my own business and to hypothetical projects as well. I've got to do some workshops with climate professionals. So we started to look at how we could redesign certain aspects of a city, all these human spaces that really fulfill just human needs. How can we redesign them to also nurture the lives of the urban animals that are living there? Because biodiversity is intrinsically linked with climate change. The worse climate change gets, the more biodiversity we lose. And the more biodiversity we lose, the worse climate change gets. So it's about designing things to nurture nature for all of our benefit. Also, just been doing some climate corporate workshops with Nova University in Lisbon. There's about 44 different corporate professionals, and they were just exploring how to see the ecosystem, the wider ecosystem of their products and their industry, and what those impacts were. And then I do some training with educators and students and design teams as well. So I'm going to take you through some practical applications of life-centered design, just to sort of give you an idea of what can be done with it. So as I said, I've applied it to my own business. I applied it a couple of years ago when I just had a very basic website, my first book, and these downloadable tools. This is actually part of the process before I published the book, was applying it to all these aspects, a digital product, a physical product as well. And initially, there's some pretty obvious things that I could do to do less harm. And that was, first of all, use print on demand. So instead of going to a traditional publisher, I self-publish, and that way I can use print on demand. Traditional publishing usually publishes copies of books in bulk, ships them around the world. That uses a lot of energy and materials, and a lot of them cannot sell, and then that ends up in waste. I use sustainable web design practices, which is just basically designing your websites in a way to use less energy, to produce less carbon. And part of life-centered design is about really being transparent about what you do and holding yourself accountable. So I publish these on my website and update what I've been doing as well. And this aligns me as a tiny small business with some global goals about climate action and responsible consumption production. I took it sort of a more ecosystem look. This is an older ecosystem tool about what the ecosystem that I was part of, and firstly to sort of identify life forms that may be sort of impacted negatively in my ecosystem. Obviously, trees are cut down to make the paper for my books. That's the flag there, the black, yellow, and red flag of the Indigenous Australians. And through my research, I could see that they were practically not mentioned about their practices when it comes to sustainability, a sustainable living, a sustainable design of their system and things. And it was just completely left out of all these discussions about how design was becoming more sustainable. So for me, they were still being marginalized, and also meant those new designers of today were completely missing out on all their knowledge. And the other image represents people who perhaps can't afford education, they can't afford to buy my books, or they might be from a completely different economy where everything's a lot more expensive here than in Australia. So for me, it was like, okay, these are sort of paper and and indigenous people and people from different economies, how do I kind of get them more connected with what I'm doing and lessen those barriers? So I created a persona for trees, um, and I'm sort of keeping these people in mind as well. And eventually I've come up with 6 commitments. I keep First Nations people in conversation. I provide discounted and open source material. I donate back to tree conservation. And this aligns me with more global goals. From a business model perspective, I'll come back to that. Um, so by doing sort of a bunch of things, a few extra things from a life-centered approach, I can change this standard business model where I'm taking materials from the world, making a few books, sell them, they get discarded, creating some waste, and the profit is for myself and designers who read. That's basically the model, right? But if I apply some life-centered design thinking, where I'll use print on demand and I donate to conservation. So suddenly now I'm reducing the use of nature, I'm regenerating nature, um, and through the content of what I'm producing as well, and giving sort of more free and discounted access, it opens it up to more people. And then I'm reducing waste by educating users on planet-friendly behavior. I actually put in the back of my books now a guide on how to keep your book in circular. So if a page falls out, you can use this glue. It's a vegan glue. It doesn't taint the book. You can still then put it in recycling. And on my website, I'm talking to people more about the fact that, hey, if you're buying this book, you're now a caretaker for trees, just like I am. And this is how we can start doing it. You can donate here, follow these guidelines as well. So it's about kind of recognizing the impacts of your wider ecosystem and connecting yourself and your users with these parts of nature that make this experience that you're creating, make it possible. As I said, it's all about doing less harm and more good, and doing what you can with the power that you have. So I think that's one of the really cool things about life-centered design is that it helps you shift from passive hope, where we're waiting for these huge system changes to happen that are just taking forever to change. And it allows you to recognize what you can do, and it gives you the tools to do it. Zooming out, so if you're part of more of a mass production industry, I started to explore, okay, I took a product that I see a lot of and that's big and bulky and creates a lot of waste. Obviously mattresses. I mean, every week when I walk to the gym, I see a few on the street. They're everywhere. 36 million produced a year and 2.6 million end up discarded in the landfill. And they're really, really big and bulky. So what could mattress manufacturing do with a life-centered approach? So I took an ecosystem view. This is like a life cycle analysis. It's where you kind of look at all the inputs and outputs throughout the production. And that gives you this kind of quick insight into things that you can fix from a sustainable circular design perspective. So I could see that there's hardly any recycled materials are being used. It's not easy to repair. It's hard to resell or recycle. It's creating landfill. So just seeing from that perspective, using circular design and behavioral design, we could make some changes to reduce that waste. So improving the design of the product using recycled materials, etc., and then bringing users into it, creating an app that sends them reminders of when to flip and rotate, gives them quick care and maintenance information as they need it. Enables them to book a collection so it's kept off the street when they're done with it. So that's all about doing less harm, and it's optimizing your products and your experiences for circularity and inclusiveness. The other thing about taking this wider ecosystem view is then you can, as I've been saying, you can see the other parts of nature or communities that the whole system is impacting. And so taking an ecosystem view of a mattress, a cotton and latex mattress, you can see that rivers are actually an important non-human persona. There's a whole lot, very high water use during the irrigation of cotton to make the cotton. A lot of water used in the processing of these materials, and there's a lot of chemical runoff as well. And at the other end of the cycle, there's a lot of chemical leaching to rivers from landfill that mattresses really contribute a lot to. So if we take, so the mattress manufacturing industry could take an approach and create a persona for the river systems. And These could be really, really powerful. This is like what I call a source of truth. It just has a whole lot of information about what's the importance of this non-human persona, of this non-human, what's its relationship with humanity, and then you sort of boil that down to where its key needs, and that's what you can really refer to in your design and decision-making sessions. You can also make, that's a sneak peek I'm going to give you in a minute. Okay, so, and you can make multimedia versions, which are really good for sharing and getting involved. I'll just play this for you.
My flow is my heartbeat. As a river system, I am vital for maintaining planetary biodiversity. I distribute fresh water around the planet. I provide vital ecosystem services, including habitats for aquatic life, nutrient cycling, and water purification.
As you can see, that can sort of it could be a lot more impactful when you start creating some multimedia versions. But when you take this lens and you realize that, okay, there's this specific non-human that we still take from and we still kind of impact negatively, it helps you, and you really understand its needs. It really helps you go think more deeply about what you can do with your product and the ecosystem of your product. So, for example, taking this idea, an app that enables users to look after their mattress more, we can take it further by using it to educate them that, hey, your mattress, your sleep relies a lot on the river systems. What ones are near you? Try to connect with them. Are there cleanup days? You can start putting in some engage kids so they start learning at a young age about their relationship with nature and all these things around them that rely on nature by creating bedtime stories. And then you can weave in bedtime stories about rivers that are from different cultures. So in this way, life-centered design really starts to deepen the relationships between people and people and nature. It just expands this whole, whether it's a product or a business, from just serving humanity to serving the planet. So what else can digital do? So digital's tricky because we know that there's all this background physical components that enable our digital experience, but it's hard to impact them. Like if you're creating a digital experience, you have very little influence over changing the sustainability of the devices or the cloud servers, etc. But what can we do? So I started exploring this from, again, ecosystem mapping, something from social media. So I thought Instagram is something that I use, I was really interested in. This is just a very sort of rudimentary reimagination of what I was finding out. But obviously it enables content creation, it sells using algorithms, it enables communication sharing, but it drives device use and drives device sales. So I've downloaded my data from Instagram. I can see they know my exact model. So they can use the algorithms to go, okay, Damien bought an Apple iPhone this year. He's probably ready, due for another one now. They can drive ads to make us use our devices, and their experience is making us use our devices. So from that perspective, they're actually really contributing to e-waste in a sort of indirect way. And their influence is this algorithm. So that's when you can start to think, okay, how might a business or anyone use the influence they have to make a difference? So in this case, it's how might Instagram use its predictive algorithm to reduce e-waste. So in that sense, they could create a persona for e-waste, which was really kind of about understanding the fact that it doesn't want to be e-waste, it wants to be reused. And so this is just through going through the life-centered design process, generating some ideas. So Instagram provides adverts for new devices. It doesn't have to stop doing that, but it could use that same algorithm that knows when you want to buy a device to also show you ads about what to do with your old device and start to encourage sustainable behaviors and reduce e-waste. It knows I have an iPhone, so it could show me ways to repair it through Apple, trade it in with Apple. It can connect me with local recycling businesses. So here in Australia, there's one called Mobile Muster, and they recycle your phone for free. So they could still do their ads to sell things, but at the same time, they can sell sustainable behavior. another idea is that with this mobile muster, they actually offer this free service. They will send you a satchel for free, and you put your phone in it and send it back, and it gets recycled. You don't have to spend anything. The current journey to find that in Instagram is 5 steps, and you'd have to know that mobile muster exists and that this offer exists. But they can actually promote, expose an ad that connects you straight to that service. So it not just makes it quicker, but it elevates the exposure of this offer to reduce, in the long term, reduce e-waste. So this is how businesses can use their influence to do what they can now to contribute to doing less harm and more good. So I've started to pull all this information together into a 6-week course. This is one way you can start learning. In the first week, you will map an ecosystem. So you'll choose a product and its business of your choice, and you'll map its ecosystem. That's really about sort of identifying the problems. You'll then use circular design and inclusive design. So you start learning these types of design, this thinking as well, to optimize the circularity, the sustainability, inclusiveness of your product. And then you'll see what parts of nature and communities are you still impacting, and you'll create personas for them, and then start innovating ways to give back to them and regenerate them. In the second last week, in week 5, you'll look at the sustainable development goals that your ecosystem connects to, and innovate ways to connect with them and support them, and also how to set metrics to measure all of these things. So by week 5, it's a 6 weeks of course, but by week 5, you will have experienced innovating at all these different levels and experimenting with these different fringe design practices. And in the end, you share back your life-centered redesign. You'll get feedback, and then we have a bit of discussion about how to forge ahead with that. How do we get it into our workflow? I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the course board. So we'd work in Miro. We have sort of a welcome discussion, and then everyone goes down and finds a row. Everyone has a work row. Generally, how it will work each week. After the first week, you'll have some homework. You'll share it back, and you'll get feedback from myself and the group. And then we'll go into a bit of an activity that sets us up for the next week. And so every week we'll give feedback to each other on our innovations. You'll be going through each session. So week 2, you'll do some product and lifecycle level innovation. You'll then create personas. This is when you'll start to do, in week 4, you'll do more good by using the personas to regenerate them, and then align with the planet. Zooming in, there'll be all of these tools here. I'll show you this example. So it's set up in a way that the tools there's an example to guide you. At certain times, you will come across things like some help cards. So these things that you can just flip to helps prompt you and give you ideas what to think about in exploring things like diversity or exclusion. There's ones to think about different stages of the product life cycle to help you think about, okay, what impacts are happening there. And if you're designing for animals, if you've created a persona for animals, there are tips from interspecies design, which is about designing for animals, how to protect them, how to consider them, but also how to engage them if they need to interact with what you're designing. Yeah, so and then we'll slowly build everything together, and in the final week, another really cool and fun tool is this one, which is where you sort of work out which sustainable development goals that you connect to, and you start to use these links and prompts to generate ideas on how your business can support those goals directly. 10 minutes, so I'm going to wind that up. Finding your present, and what you can present can be a web page. There's a web page template there that you can use. You can present it any way that suits you best. If you're a designer and you want to create a case study, you present it as a case study. If you want to create a presentation for your team or in business to inspire changes, you could present it as that. Maybe you want to create a future vision as well to inspire more longer term changes. How you present it back is up to you. And that last session will actually be 3 hours, so we can all give each other feedback. And then we'll talk about things like how we forge ahead and embed these into our workflow. And then, of course, you get a certificate, pretty little certificate. So that's a sneak peek at the course where you can start learning. I've got a few more things to share, but I'll just throw it back to you if there's any thoughts or questions about life-centered design or non-human personas, about learning it, if you've had any experience.
Thank you, Damien. Really good presentation. I was just curious about some of the things that you were sharing. I haven't had a lot of experience trying to look into my environmental footprint or understanding it from that perspective. So thanks a lot for that structured approach. So where you can analyze and you can have that type of methodology that we can sometimes use in this is a kind of a self-awareness tool also that can help us to do something for good. Was really one of the things that you mentioned that resonated with me were how you embodied the non-human persona, especially the river with someone talking, and I think that really gives it more I wouldn't say importance, but it gives us some power to something that's just their nature, and all of a sudden it's like you feel more connected with it and try to create more empathy towards that. So I think that's really wonderful. And another thing that you share that really struck a chord was browsing in new devices and seeing the advertising and seeing the things, because I recently had an experience. I needed to change my laptop, and I was browsing a new laptop to buy in my old laptop, and I kind of felt like I was cheating my laptop that I currently had with the new one that I would buy. I was feeling like you're not important. This is the one that are going to. So it's like this idea of making these objects and nature and all the things kind of having personality. You kind of feel bad for throwing them away or getting them to recycle. I think there's some power into that. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. That's some of the notes that I take for today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Marco, hey.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Marco. Thank you very much, Damien, for your presentation. Also, I found very insightful, especially for the regenerative futures that you are let's say, proposing with your methodology. Well, just one question, because I found the tools very, very, very useful. Does your journey include also an iterative approach? Because I can see quite detailed each week there is a different type of task, a different type of activity. Is there a moment where people can do a reflection or an iterative approach within your schedule?
Can you give me
how
yeah, can you just give me an example of what you mean?
Like when they arrive to a certain point, there is a reflection where they maybe they can go back and then improve before delivering the last bit.
Yes. Every week. Sorry,
yeah.
Coming out. So every week you'll get a chance to share. So each tool kind of takes you through these steps to come up with innovations.
Okay.
So you have this series of innovations, and you'll have you'll bring all these together, you'll share them each week and get feedback. So you can iterate them over time into the last week. And in the last week, you actually get to bring together all of your innovations that you've done from a product or a life cycle level, connecting to sustainable development goals. You get to refine them, and you turn them into like statements. So you're kind of iterating through, and you have this final step where you start to pull it all together. And even then, when you present it, the night that you present it, we'll give each other feedback so you can hone it even more.
Okay, so basically each week we'll have a reflection
Yes.
and
I'm thinking that we'll spend the first hour
thinking through the
each
process.
week giving each other sorry, it was cutting out. I think I'm talking over you, sorry. Yeah, each week we'll have like 50 minutes, 60 minutes where we'll look at each other's homework and give feedback.
Okay, great. It looked great, and it's very thoughtful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of the best part is that discussion point. That's where we learn the most. So I think that's the most important. Getting close to running out of time. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Because I might just round out with a few things. I'll dive in. Okay, so look, the future of our world is in flux. It's changing quickly. There was this article from just last month about how this record temperature jump in the Antarctic and just those compounding impacts they're going to have. I don't mean to be fear-mongering, but I personally think there's just a lot of compounding impacts that we're totally not aware of. So we need to sort of be able prepared for that. But in conjunction with that, the regulations that are requiring design, whether it's products, business, whatever, to be more sustainable, they're changing and they're really evolving. In Australia, we're quite behind, but in Europe, it's a lot further ahead than us, but it's only a matter of time before those regulations become tighter here as well. So, and people like Don Norman, Layla Akaraglou, I always struggle with her name, Bruce Mau, have been talking about this sort of life-centered design approach for a while, and the fact that the designer role itself is changing and we need to become more generalist, be able to zoom in and out and not just working at one level, because we need to understand the impacts, what we're doing at that one level. So life-centered design will help you design with different design practice, discover these different design practice like biomimicry, interspecies design. It's really, really fascinating. Brings new joy and excitement to design and enables you to work at different levels. As a designer, you'll power up your abilities, and because, as I said, you'll be able to work at different levels and therefore your impact and your future opportunities. So you'll get introduced to all these different design practices. And ultimately, it's about doing less harm and more good for people, animals, environment. So that's what you really feel and you care about. This enables you to start doing that with the influence that you have. So if you're interested, you can enroll in the course. It starts the 14th of May. Each week, it's 2.5 hours. There's about 2 to 5 hours homework per week. It's up to you, the amount of effort you put in. You'll complete a design project. You'll get group and instructive feedback every week. And there's a Slack group channel for keeping in contact in between as well, so we can keep sharing things, etc. And lastly, just start exploring in any way that you feel comfortable with. At the Life Centered Design Lab, I have free tools. There's a dashboard that you just create a free account. It sort of pulls all the tools together. There's videos, some free downloads as well, guidebooks, courses, and there's a monthly inspiration newsletter. So that focuses on a different mindset each month and actually gives you tools how to implement it. So feel free to explore that. And yeah, reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email via the website if you have any other questions about the course as well. Less than a minute to go. Any last questions? I think I answered everything in the chat too. Looks good. I just want to say thanks for coming along.
Thanks, Damien.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thank
Really
you.
insightful.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. See you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Devin. We keep in touch.
Great. Sounds
Bye-bye.
good. Bye-bye.
Cheers.